The Cleveland Browns stadium saga continues to evolve, and it does seem like there could be a potential bidding war trying to be created by the Cleveland Browns ownership. This was the statement that I had to go fish for. There were like 50 tweets from the Browns Twitter last night because the team won 3 awards, so I kept having to scroll down to re-find this tweet. But yeah, this was put out yesterday by the Browns after the big articles came out that the Browns were looking at buying land in Brook Park, Ohio, right next to the airport, about 10 miles south of Cleveland. Statement on future stadium planning. We've been clear on how complex future stadium planning can be. One certainty is our commitment to greatly improving our fan experience while also creating a transformative and lasting impact to benefit all of Northeast Ohio. That's a key word, Northeast Ohio. They're not just talking about Cleveland. We understand the magnitude of opportunity with a stadium project intent on driving more large-scale events to our region and are methodically looking at every possibility. So that is a direct sentence basically admitting that they want to put a dome up because they want bigger events like the Super Bowl and big-time concerts along with Final Fours. That to me reads as we want a dome. We appreciate the collaborative process with the city of Cleveland and the leadership of Mayor Bibb in analyzing the land bridge and renovating the current stadium. You can see the renderings that have been released on the potential land bridge, the potential area surrounding. There's many different renderings that have gone up over the years on what to do with that land right around Cleveland Browns Stadium and really in between the lake and Brown Stadium that right now is kind of like a dilapidated parking lot. They want to completely redo that. It makes perfect sense considering basically every new stadium we see that goes up is surrounded by buildings, by greenery, by landscaping. There is no parking surrounding right next to the stadium, and that's what the Browns are trying to do in modernizing Cleveland Browns Stadium. The issue with doing something like that is the surrounding area, building it up would cost so much money. The only thing you could really do to Cleveland Browns Stadium would probably not be a roof. No, more likely it would be some type of overhang going around the upper deck sections to at least give the fans a little bit of cover, similar to what the Buffalo Bills are doing. The Bills do have a planned stadium opening in about 3 years, and it's just going to have an overhang. So there's going to be no roof. They are not hosting a Super Bowl or anything like that, although I don't think based on where their stadium is, they probably wouldn't get a Super Bowl anyways. It does seem like Jimmy Haslam really wants to host bigger events, and this statement, it reeks of, we want money from the city, and Cleveland didn't want to play ball, so now we're going to other places to try and create leverage against the city of Cleveland. But it was also reported yesterday, I saw in the article when I was talking about it, that Haslam didn't really care if Cleveland knew about the Brook Park situation, buying all of that land, over 160 acres, so maybe it's not even about that. It's an interesting spot because they're two completely different projects. Obviously, they're located in different areas, but, rebuilding or renovating a stadium versus building an entirely brand new one, those are two completely different situations. You can see the statement later says, at the same time, as part of our comprehensive planning efforts, we are also studying other potential stadium options in Northeast Ohio at various additional sites. There's still plenty of work to do and diligence to process before a long-term stadium solution is determined, and we will share further updates in the appropriate time. So we would hope that something big would come out this summer, actually hopefully within the next few months, maybe just some initial renderings on what a stadium would look like at the Brook Park site. But either way, to me, that reads as, yes, we want a dome, we want a new stadium. They did mention maybe doing the renovation with the land bridge and talking about that. That could still possibly be an option, but it does seem like they're hunting for a better deal because the city of Cleveland doesn't want to help fund them, or at least fund them the necessary amount that they want in terms of tax dollars. Normally with these billionaire owners, it tends to be them wanting some type of 50-50 proposition. A lot of them realize that it's never going to be fully publicly funded, at least not anymore. I guess in some places it can be, but Nowadays, it seems like people are kind of waking up and saying, these billionaire owners need to pay. They're the ones, if the Browns get a brand new stadium with a translucent roof, the team value is going to increase. And that really only helps the owner. It doesn't really help the city at all. So in general, why should the city and the taxpayers pay for a stadium that's going to make the owner more money? That doesn't make any sense. So now they're saying, all right, well, let's do 50-50. Let's split it. And Cleveland didn't want to do that. So now they're hunting other spots. And this, I guess, is one of them right next to the airport. But, that area would have to be entirely built up. It would cost way more money than a lakeside renovation because you'd have to pay for the stadium and you would have to pay for all of the surrounding buildings as well. It wouldn't just be like the lakefront in Cleveland where the stadium is already built. Maybe you do a few renovations to it. I'm sure they would. I mean, they are. It is weird because they were talking about spending 2 years away from Cleveland Browns Stadium. If that is the case, you would have to think it's going to be some type of major renovation. And we do have something to compare this to, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars have not done this yet, but they're planning on literally installing a completely new facade and translucent roof onto their existing stadium. I don't know if the Browns would do something like that, but that has to also be in the back of their mind. Either way, it seems like this is going to be a $2 billion project no matter where it is. Because you got to think about it, even when it comes to just renovating Cleveland Browns Stadium, a 2-year process, that's going to be a lot of construction to the stadium. That's going to cost probably $1 billion itself, maybe a little bit less. And then the surrounding area is what's really going to cost a ton of money if they decide to stay at Cleveland Browns Stadium and play elsewhere for 2 years, as opposed to this Brook Park location. Maybe there's somewhere else where you would have to build up not only the entire stadium, but also the surrounding area. And the location of it does make sense right next to an airport, and it's not far away from the city of Cleveland. About 10 miles, I would say about a 15-minute drive from the highway from Cleveland. It is a very accessible area. It is hard to predict how situations like this will play out just because we don't know how much of an incentive it is for the Cleveland mayor to keep the Browns in the city. And it does seem like they're trying to create more options, very similar to what the Chicago Bears did, especially with when they looked like they were going to go to Arlington Heights and then there was a tax problem. They started talking to other surrounding cities. Now it looks like they possibly want a lakefront stadium as well. So another thing I wanted to talk about in relation to the Bills' situation, them building an open stadium, a lot of people have made reference to it. Whenever there's really bad weather in Buffalo, it seems like almost at this point, one game gets postponed or moved every year, and people are like, why would they not just build a dome? They're getting a new stadium. It makes perfect sense. Well, they really dug into the whole idea. They're Buffalo. They want to have kind of an outdoor feel. They want the snow. They like that type of weather. Would Cleveland think similarly to that, or is it a little bit different with Haslam? I think it is different. I think Haslam really wants to host other events. And also when you look at Cleveland versus Orchard Park, Buffalo, there are more opportunities in Cleveland. So I think there's just a difference in terms of, you could compare Cleveland to Buffalo and say they're both cold weather, they're both blue collar, but based on the ownership situation, I think the Browns were always much more likely to get a dome than the Bills. This is something we're seeing more and more, especially with NFL teams, but also, you take a look at a situation with the Washington Wizards and the Capitals possibly both moving to Northern Virginia, completely out of the way, completely out of the District of Columbia, and planning possibly a $2 billion home arena there with a surrounding built-up area. Again, really not including much parking surrounding there. So it's just, we're seeing these developments where they're going outside of the major cities, and it is easier to do if you are an NFL team because there's less events, and theoretically, you build up some really nice hotels, you build up some really nice restaurants, you're right next to an airport, you can have huge concerts year-round, you don't have to worry about the weather, and it's not directly in downtown. That could be a nice setup, but you also have to think this could just be a bidding situation where the ownership is trying to get cities to bid against each other in an effort to get more funds for a new stadium, the surrounding area, and things like that. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.